Okay, now I want to talk about the tactical concept of removing the guard. So, let's say in this position it's white's turn to move, and white can use the tactic of removing the guard to win a piece. And that move is actually capturing the knight here. So what happened? Well, basically, if we back up a move, black's knight was guarding and was the only guard of this bishop. So what we did is we captured the bishop, and notice that at the same time the queen is attacking the bishop. So what we did is we captured the knight that was guarding the bishop. So what now happens is that if black recaptures the bishop, say this, with this pawn, white will simply recapture the bishop, and actually white has won a piece. Okay, or technically black could move away the bishop, could move it somewhere, and then white could just move the bishop, and white would have won the knight. So this is removing the guard. I just want to point out maybe some differences. In my previous lecture I covered an overloaded piece that now was defined as a piece that was doing two defensive jobs. If we notice the knight, while it is doing two defensive jobs, it's not overloaded. It is defending the bishop and the rook, but here no piece is actually attacking the rook. Okay, I mean we could set up maybe something of overworking the knight, but that isn't what we're trying. I just want to point out the difference is that the knight is not overloaded as in my previous lecture, but the knight is guarding, is the sole guard to the bishop, and we're going to take out the sole guard, leaving the bishop vulnerable to capture. So let's just go over the technical definition. So removing the guard is an enemy piece may become undefended or underdefended. What I mean by this is I covered a lecture on superior force, which says if you have more attackers than defenders, you can win the piece by force. So one of the concepts of removing the guard is if you remove one of the guards, then the piece may become vulnerable to capture because now you have superior force. So, and we remove the guard. Well, when the guard is forced, it is removed, and usually the guard, so I'm discovering an enemy piece may become undefended or underdefended if the piece or a piece guarding it is removed. And usually it's removed by capture, but sometimes it could be you just force it to move away. Maybe you poke it with a pawn, it's forced to move, and then you win it. But in most cases, removing the guard means capturing the guard. So I just want to say, technically, if sort of undefended, I just want to cover, or underdefended, meaning we just need more attackers than defenders. But in this case, it was just simply there was one, before we captured the bishop, white had one guard. Black had one guard and white had one attacker. And then after we captured the bishop, it had no defenders and one attacker. Okay? Sort of, if you notice in chess, it's sort of left with, you only get one move, and unfortunately, you're left with, you can't accomplish two things at one time with the single move. That's sort of a good principle of chess, is that we're always making something where there's two threats, and you can't respond to both of them. So let's go through some other examples of removing the guard. Okay, let's say it's white's turn to move. And actually this is sort of I don't want to call it a classic example, but I've seen this position more than once. And actually, I remember many years ago when I was playing at a club, I actually missed, there were more pieces on the board at that time than this, and I actually missed this this exact same setup when I was rated about 1200. And my opponent pointed out to me after the game that I missed removing the guard and really just winning the game. Actually, I ended up losing the game, and I could have won it very quickly with this tactic. So what is the move? Well, notice that the only guard to the queen is this knight. So what we're going to do is remove it. And we're going to remove it with check. And the move is bishop takes the knight. So now the queen has no defender, and we're giving check. This loses the queen. So it not only loses the knight, it also loses the queen, because black has no real good response. If black simply moves the king, let's say to here, we simply pick up the queen, and then black can recapture, but this game is pretty much lost. Or technically we could capture knight. Technically I guess the queen could move back if you really wanted to, and then we can capture with the queen or with the bishop. Still black loses the queen. Okay, so another example, this is something to look for, or this is a position which could occur in your game. So once again, removing the guard, the only guard, we remove the only guard to the queen with check, and now the queen will be lost. Let's go through another example. Okay, I've set up this position, and it's black's turn to move. What I want to point out is that my previous examples were more like take a piece, win a piece right away, and this one is a little bit more advanced. And the problem here is that if you look at it, white has a real problem with this e2 square. Why? Well, the bishop is lined up on it, and this rook is lined up on it. Okay, and actually if black could actually move its rook to here, which would be protected by the bishop, it would give check to the king, and then the rook could come over and capture the queen. This would be great. Basically, black would pick up the queen. But the problem with that is that this knight here is actually defending the square, preventing that move. Well, guess what? That's the only guard to that square. So how does black capitalize? Well, it simply removes the guard with this bishop right here. So black captures, and actually it captures with check, which is a problem. And then let's say white maybe was not savvy to this fact of going to lose a piece. So it moves, and then white can simply come down and check it. Now if white tries to tries to block, we still get the same result. That's what could happen. Okay? Not to say those were the most perfect moves, but just to show you the example of basically for us to get this nice setup here, that this knight was preventing it, so we simply took it out. And now there's a problem because, like I said, technically, if you think about it, white just lost the knight. So if it moves, it lost the knight. And we're going to even get more material. So, actually if white recaptured, we'd still win the queen. So whatever white did, it was going to lose a lot of material. So in this case, let's say it goes backwards and we just pick up the queen.